On April 30th, 1977, 2,500 people organized by the Clamshell Alliance held a non-violent occupation on the construction site of a nuclear power plant in Seabrook, a small coastal town in New Hampshire. The next day, 14 people were arrested and held in National Guard armories for 13 days. This is a document of that event.
In America, you certainly have a right to an opinion that is opposite that of other people. And you do have an opinion that is opposite of what I have with respect to nuclear power. So you came, as I understand it, to let the world know that there is another side and that you represent that other side. Okay. Now, on the other hand, you understand that you're here against the laws of the state of New Hampshire. You're trespassing here.
Well, as you probably know, I was there, and they seem to represent a cross-section of Middle America. There were young people there were married people there, and as I recall, there were several children. I drew the assumption that the children were offspring of married couples, and there were people as old as I was, from different stations in life, from the academic community and from other disciplines. They were well behaved. I think that they were there in support of their beliefs and their principles, but so were we.
Nuclear power to me, as a physician, presents the most dangerous health hazard I think the world's ever known. A little bit now, but much more in the future. Nuclear power is a way of boiling water to produce electricity. It's a very expensive way of boiling water, and it's a very dangerous way of boiling water. And all we get is some electricity which turns on our lights. But the side effects are so severe that we must think very carefully about it if we're to proceed with nuclear power, because it produces the most toxic, carcinogenic or cancer-making chemicals that we've ever known. And some of these chemicals last for thousands and thousands or even 500,000 years.
This is the site of Seabrook Station, a 2-unit nuclear power generating plant that's expected to go into operation in 1985 to supply most of New Hampshire's electrical power. At the site here, it's a peninsula that goes out into the marsh. The site itself is in a woodland area. You can see over across Hampton Beach. The site is about 2 miles back from the beach.
My name is Colleen Perouse, and I've lived in Seabrook all my life. And the nuclear plant, I am all against. I don't want it, we don't need it, and we're in hopes of stopping it.
The planning that went into the operation would put many military staffs to shame. It was very well planned. You know, the whole thing, the written portions, the briefing, the constant talks they gave to the people, they definitely cleaned out participants who might have caused any problem. I knew of several cases personally where they actually refused to have people participate who they think would the right type of person. You know, they were either they're frivolous or people who might fool around with drugs and so forth. So they really did a lot of cleaning up. But their planning was excellent. It was too good, overwhelmed me.
Really?
I'm Fred Gunderson. This is a staging area for the anti-nuke demonstration. We're trying to get everybody together here before going near the site. This is a staging area that is holding people from Western Mass, Connecticut, Vermont, some people from New York City. We just I feel that this is a very important movement, and I think whatever I can do to stop it, I am putting that effort forward. This is my land and my house here. I built it myself, and I've opened it up to everybody that's here today. Everybody here has gone through nonviolent training. We don't foresee any problems with the state troopers or the police department, the local police departments. We have been in communication with the local police department in Seabrook. We have told them everything that we are going to do. We have been out in the forefront with it. We haven't kept anything secret. We plan to move on to the site sometime tomorrow morning and hopefully stay there as long as possible.
Ride was wonderful. Thank you for the ride. The reason why Seabrook Station was chosen to be a nuclear power plant is because in New England today and for the next couple of years and the next decade or two, the only available fuels to generate large amounts of electricity are uranium, oil, and coal. And on the basis of the cost of electricity, the availability of the source of supply of that fuel, and environmental impact, we felt, other New England utilities feel, that nuclear power is the best choice over those three possible alternatives.
When you first heard about the plant, what was your initial reaction to it?
I was very much against it. My first thought, of course, is about the radiation. I have children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And I think of the young people. It won't affect me so much at my age, but the younger ones growing up, I'm afraid it will, definitely. And we tried to educate the people on the pros and cons. And we took up a petition and had it put on the ballot, should there be a nuclear-powered plant in Seabrook. And the vote came out 768 no, 632 yes. And the selectmen called it non-binding.
What do they mean by it being a non-binding?
Well, it was just that our votes didn't count, evidently.
They're waving to us.
The Clamshell Alliance started in response to the construction permit finally being granted by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for a twin nuclear power plant in Seabrook, New Hampshire on the coast. So then, there we were in the end of June 1976 waiting for the results from the NRC. And when they came down at the very end of June and officially the first week of July, people across New England who were watching the Seabrook opposition and opposition to this plant decided that we had to gather together and figure out what to do next, since all legal action had failed and the Public Service Company of New Hampshire was ready to go ahead with construction. So in the second week of July '76, people got together people from little anti-nuclear groups like ours here in Franklin County, and people from Boston, a lot of people mostly from New Hampshire, and we talked over a period of a couple of weeks at a couple of meetings, and we decided that we had to get together and plan an opposition to the plant, to stop the plant based on nonviolent direct action, that this was the only recourse we had left to us.
You're an affinity group leader?
Right, I'm what's called a spoke.
A spokesperson. How did you become a spokesperson?
I was elected by the people in the group.
Elected by the people in the group. How was this group put together?
A lot, just people who were interested initially in Gloucester area came to meetings, and then people who decided they might want to occupy went to a nonviolent training session held by Isabel.
We had, I guess, 2 training sessions, and we began each session introducing ourselves and getting to know each other, and then we spent a good deal of time talking about nonviolence and what nonviolence means, and some of the history of nonviolence, about how Gandhi worked to free India from the British Empire through nonviolence, and the civil rights movement using nonviolence, and let each person talk about what they mean about nonviolence, that nonviolence is respect for other people, and it's a position of strength, that you can be strong in your beliefs without being violent.
In the training sessions, we had role plays. Role plays are setting up a situation that is a little bit like what might really happen. So there were police in the role plays, there were occupiers, and the police got into being police, and the occupiers got into being occupiers. And we set up, here's where the police stand, here's what the occupiers are going to do, and then we say, go. And then everyone takes over from there, like everyone acts in their roles. When all that's done, each person gets a chance to talk about what it was like being in that role in the action. So if an occupier did something, the police could say what that felt like being policed. And this way we get a lot of good information about what's effective and what's not effective, and what the different people might be feeling in the actual action. It was a real good way to prepare ourselves and have some idea of what could happen.
My name is Claire Van Pesky, and I'm from Amherst, Massachusetts.
Why are you here today?
Well, I'm here today because I have 3 children, and I'd like to try to make the world safe for them to live in. My oldest is 18, my youngest is 13, and I just don't see how, given human nature, we can keep those wastes safe for generations and generations of unborn children, including my grandchildren, which are still in the offing.
How do your children feel about your being here today?
Well, they're a little nervous because they understand that there could be some reasonable serious repercussions, possibly violence. The youngest was nervous about my coming, but he feels that it's really important that we make a stand.
All radiation is dangerous. This is just commonly recognized throughout the medical literature, that no radiation to human beings, or animals for that matter, is safe. We live with a background level of radiation which comes from the sun and some of the rocks on the earth, and we've adjusted to the background radiation, and we live with it all right. Now, to increase the radiation is dangerous, because all radiation increases the risk of cancer production, and it increases the risk of damaging the genes in the eggs and the sperm, which will be responsible for future generations. Background radiation is low level, and it's averaged over all the cells of the body, and we've got millions and billions of cells in our body, and if you get 170 millirads to the total body, each cell receives just a very minute dose. But radiation from nuclear power is different, because it's produced in particulate matter as chemicals. And as these chemicals leak into the environment, which they're doing every day from waste storage facilities, from nuclear power plants, from the fuel cycle starting at the beginning, from uranium mining, from uranium enrichment and milling, right through to the waste products at the end of the nuclear power cycle. Each stage produces radioactive material, and because man is fallible, this stuff leaks. And so as it leaks now, so it will inevitably leak in the future. Now, as these materials leak into the environment, they tend to get into the water, and then they're concentrated in the food chains. They're concentrated by the grass and the vegetables from the water. Then, as the cattle eat the grass and the vegetables, it's concentrated in the cattle. And at each stage, it's concentrated thousands of times. And then as human beings eat the cattle, the meat, and the milk, it's concentrated further in us. So that as the stuff leaks, you don't know where it's going. You can't taste it. You can't smell it. You can't see it. So therefore, you don't know, for instance, that you're drinking some milk containing strontium-90 or radioactive iodine, or you're eating a piece of cheese containing this stuff, or anything else. You don't know that you might be breathing some air containing some plutonium. And it's important for the general population to know this, that nuclear power won't kill them like that. It's going to take a long time for them to get their cancer. 15 to 40 years to get their cancer, and 5 years to get their leukemia. And we know this from the bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We know these statistics.
The destination are the cooling tunnels, the area where those huge pipes are. We ask people not to go into them. They're dangerous. They can roll. Basically, what will happen is we'll approach those and sit down and wait for others to join us.
Governor, are you going to let the protesters stay on the site overnight or for an extended period of time?
The court order, at the request of the Public Service Company, was made to cover a restricted area, namely that area by which we have the chain link fence. And that's the extent of the order, and that's the part that we are concerned about, and we'll be protecting. If they want to be outside, they're welcome.
They can come up the road? They're welcome to stay up there beyond the chain link fence, or where you'd only be arrested for criminal trespass?
Well, at this point, we're not going to do anything about what they will be doing out there. Our concern right now is the part that is confined by the fence.
And you won't allow them to come up the access road, the entrance road?
I'll leave that to the general.
Colonel?
Colonel. Well, the general might be along.
Are you trying to tell me something, Governor? That maybe a promotion is in the offering?
It depends upon your performance, Colonel.
You mean a pay raise?
We are not prohibiting them from coming in on the access road as long as they do not block ingress and egress of motor vehicles or any other type of activity that may be going on in that road.
How far can they come up, Colonel?
At this point in the weekend, we are not prohibiting them from coming on public service property as long as they don't go beyond, as the governor indicated, the chain link fence enclosure.
Governor, they have said they were, Colonel, they have said they're going to stay here until the construction is stopped, not just a weekend. What's going to happen after the weekend?
Well, decisions relating to your question will be made as time goes on.
Well, how do you feel about being put in this position right now?
Well, instead of this, frankly, I would like to see the Public Service Company's contractors working overtime this weekend and every weekend and well into the night to get the nuclear plant completed. We need it in New Hampshire, we need it in New England, and we need it as a part of the production force in America for energy.
All right,
Where are you set up, over here? Around
We're going to ask people to sit down
It started, I think, very small. I think there was only a handful of people in town that fully realized what was going to happen. And it's just mushroomed from there. It's a point of asking them, all right, do you know what plutonium is? Do you know what radioactivity is? And people didn't even think about it. They just sat there, well, no, I don't really know. And I said, well, you're going to have it in your backyard, and you'd get a few that would decide that they were going to go out and find out what was going on and just exactly what was coming into town. And others didn't care. And I think it's gotten to the point now where they are realizing exactly what's going on. I think public service paints a good picture.
What exactly is public service company trying to do? What kind of pressure have they tried to put upon you?
Oh, well, in pressure, at the time I was working, but my wife here can tell you what happened, because I used to work in Boston, and my wife can tell you what happened, see? She can tell you just what happened.
I was in the kitchen, and I heard a knock on the door. I was in the apartment, excuse me. And then I walked out, and there was this Daly, his name is. He turned around, he says, well, we're going to take your property. I says, you will not. He says, well, we'll get it one way or the other, run a bulldozer through your land. I says, you do it, and I'll stand right in front of it. I says, you'll have to kill me before you take my land. My husband broke his back all these years, building up this place.
I worked hard for my money. Nobody gave me nothing. Everything I got, I worked for. As I get this uniform on, I'm doing this here to help the town out. It's something to keep me occupied, see? I believe in the law, but these people don't believe in the law. They think because they're big, they can do whatever they want. But I don't know. It's a shame. Me and my wife, she's a nervous wreck, and these people don't care for nothing. And I wish that President Carter would do something about it. He's supposed to be the chief of the country. He should do something about it. See, now let me investigate. And all these people that give these utilities the okay to do this and do that, I don't think they know what they're doing, because they don't know what's here. Let them come over here and see how the people think about it. We voted twice against this here, and they said our vote was no good. Well, if my vote is no good, I voted for Jimmy Carter. If my vote is no good, I don't think Jimmy Carter should be in office.
Herd of buffalo.
We are the river, we're gonna wash your levees down. We're coming from the mountains, now we're moving through your town. We're gonna join with the other rivers, and then we'll have a chance. And no dam the man can make will stand when the sea begins to dance. The fish swim with us and they help us on our way, but they keep trying to catch them or frighten them away. But plunge the depths or stir the surface, the fishes can't be found. And only water knows where the water goes when the river's underground. Yeah, we are the river, we're gonna wash your levees down. We're coming from the mountains and we're moving through your town. We're gonna join with the other rivers, and then we'll have a chance. And no dam the man can make will stand when the sea begins to dance. Maple buds are red now, and the small streams trickling down. Brooks are running swollen, now the river's on the rise in town. And there'll be no more of your reservoirs holding us from coming from the mountains. Now we're moving through your town. We're gonna join with the other rivers, and then we'll have a chance. And oh, damn, the man can make we'll stand when the sea begins to dance.
Could you tell me why the occupiers are being allowed on the site today?
No, I couldn't. You'll have to join the main group, but for your own safety, you'll have to go and join the main group over the parking lot, the other side of the access road, please.
Okay, do you have any special plans for today or tomorrow?
No comment.
Okay, thank you.
Would you consider this a successful occupation?
No comment. You'll have to join the main group, please.
Put yourself in their position. If you were facing 1,800 or 2,000 highly organized, dedicated people committed to nonviolence and committed to the idea of getting on this site and stopping the nuclear power plant, I think you'd be real confused, and you wouldn't exactly know how to proceed. And you would probably follow the line of least resistance, which was allowing us on the site, and that's what happened. Nonviolence is just a whole other level of tactic, and it's something that is totally mind-blowing. If we had approached this thing with any ideas of violence or heavy macho sort of, we would not be on this site. There's no way. But somehow being nonviolent really opened the doors. There's no way to understand it, really. It seems to be some sort of magical force. It's really great.
I'm Pat Picou, and I'm from North Leavenworth, Massachusetts. There was such a huge amount of energy to being excited about being on the site and to be actually accomplishing what we didn't know if we could accomplish, and yet that's what we came here to do. After a while, we pitched our tents and we set up a little community and began to feel like the question of how do we govern ourselves here on in this city. I think all of our personalities changed a little bit. It was a completely new situation that it's hard to predict how you're going to be. And it's sort of a situation that you get a chance to learn what you're like, to realize that there you are on public service property and you know that it's illegal. Yet there you are with 2,000 other people. And now what can they do about this? It was probably a huge growing experience for most everybody there. You confront in yourself, you know, how strongly you feel about something, and to go to jail for anything, you have to have a certain amount of commitment, but it makes you deal with how you want to express that commitment.
My name is Antonio Sanasucci. I live at Down Lane, Seabrook, New Hampshire, and this is my wife, Louisa, right here. We've been married pretty close to over 40 years. And we lived in Boston, but in the meantime, I had a chance to pick up this piece of land here, and of course it was all woods. But me and her, we both cleaned it out, and we made it our home. This is the little house we got right here, and that's it. It's going to stay there as long as I live. And I think it'll be there when I'm gone too. It's a garden right over here. We usually, we put in a few cabbage and tomatoes and different stuff. We got a little corn down in there. You can just take a walk down here if you would like. See, I try to raise a little food, so you won't have to go to the market and buy it. You go to the market, it costs you an arm and a leg. You hear that there? From 6 o'clock in the morning to 8, 9 o'clock at night. My land goes on the other side right here. This here was all marsh. There's a lot of nice, beautiful, big pine out here. But as you know, you can see the truck going by right there. The people that work here, they don't live here. They don't care about the people in Seabrook. All they want is a mighty dollar. But if they had to put that plant in back of their own backyard, they wouldn't want it. And I think the sooner the people wake up, the better off we're going to be. We really don't need these nuclear plants. I'm right here, and like I say, they'll never get my property, no matter how much money they got, how much what.
This is the 40-acre plant site itself that you can see the excavation, which was started last August. The reactor containment unit number 1 will be sitting right over this ledge here, where down 60 feet into the rock, the foundation and support for the reactor vessel for unit number 1 will be.
What about that whole argument that the public service company and all the utility companies present, that it's impossible that a nuclear accident happens, that this can't possibly happen, that the whole safety argument is ridiculous? How would you respond to that?
Well, I don't...
Just a short, stone's throw away from the plant.
I don't believe it, because there have been so many near misses. Browns Ferry, the Idaho plant, where a man was pinned to the ceiling with a rod, the Turkey Point plant, and the radioactive releases that have happened in Connecticut. I mean, there have been so many things in the plant in England. If what they mean is one great Holocaust, I don't think we should wait for one, because it would involve too many deaths.
Now, if there's a meltdown, what happens? Well, there's as much radiation in each power plant as 1,000 Hiroshima-type bombs. And if there's a meltdown and this escapes, it will kill thousands of people. Thousands will die pretty instantly that day when they're irradiated, if the dose is high enough. And 2 weeks later, many more will die of what's called acute radiation illness. And what happens is that they're perfectly healthy for about 2 weeks, and then all the rapidly dividing cells of the body die, and that's the hair cells, so the hair falls out. It's the cells in the gut, so you have vomiting and diarrhea. It's the skin cells, so you get big ulcers on the skin. And it's the blood cells, so you die eventually of anemia an infection because there are no white blood cells to fight infection, and it's a hideous death. And it was not described until the bombs fell on Hiroshima, and the doctors were seeing a new disease which they'd never seen before. So that's acute radiation illness. 5 years later, there'll be an epidemic of leukemia among the people who've been exposed. There's no way of telling where the radiation will go because it depends on the direction the wind is blowing at that particular time when there's a meltdown. And 15 years later, cancers will start appearing, and they will increase as the years go by, because it's now 30 years since that bomb was dropped, or 32, and the incidence of cancer is still rising in Hiroshima and Nagasaki among the survivors. So we don't know the maximum, the time when the peak incidence of cancer occurs from the time of radiation exposure. So it's not a pretty picture. And then, of course, generations later, there's likely to be increased incidence of genetic disease and abnormalities in the children who are born. So that's a meltdown if that occurs, and I think it's not if, it's when.
You hungry?
No, I'm full.
There'll be a lot of time.
You have no right, under the Constitution, nor our laws, to occupy this. And you understand that. And you're prepared to take the consequences, so Kathy Wolf said. And we cannot tolerate that. Your answer, in their truly American fashion, is at the polls. And that's where you should take it ultimately.
We are ready, I think, to take the consequences of our, I think we can call it a highly principled stand here. We're standing for the future of people in New Hampshire and in the eastern part of the U.S., and eventually in a protest against the building of nuclear plants all over the country and all over the world, as far as that goes.
Well, I respectfully would have to disagree and simply point out that in my judgment, and the judgment certainly of the majority of the citizens of New Hampshire, you are taking the law into your hand, and this is something that we cannot tolerate and will not tolerate. I'm going to have to go on. I was glad to come out.
Thank you for coming out. I also have one question, Governor.
Yes, one last question.
Well, I just want to know who is actually in charge of the operations here today.
I'm the governor of the state. I'm here, and I am in charge.
Okay, is Mr. Tallman or anybody from Public Service Company directing
there are a number of people of Public Service Company involved in the decision-making, and I'm listening to all who want to have some input into it.
Okay, folks, thank you very much.
I'm Colonel Paul Doyen, commanding officer of the New Hampshire State Police.
Good man.
Good afternoon.
Should we introduce everybody?
Why don't you, please?
Yeah, Colonel Doyen.
How do you do, Lisa?
Christy.
Christy, oh, all right.
Bill Gallagher from the Claremont area.
Hi, Bill. Nice to know you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
I'm Barry Inouye from Newmarket.
Oh, Barry.
David Wells from New Haven, Connecticut.
Hi, Dave. Pleasure.
Randy Cushman.
Hello, Randy. Nice to know you.
And I'm Elizabeth Boardman from Massachusetts.
How do you do, Elizabeth? Welcome to New Hampshire. I would prefer to say that under better circumstances. I didn't really come out here to be a diplomat, although I hope that a level of diplomacy can be reached, perfect human level of understanding can be reached between us all. As you're well aware, we've been here since Friday, and it's been a trying period for all concerned, our side and your side. We're all Americans, and we're all here living up to a principle or a duty. It would be my wish, and I would hope that I could gain your indulgence and cooperation, in that you'd entertain the fact that you perhaps have fulfilled initially the goal that you set out to do, which was the occupation of the site. You quite obviously have gained the attention, I would suspect, has been hoped for by your leadership, because your cause has been brought forth in the front pages of many publications throughout the country, along with the tube and the airways. In the best interest of just being human beings, for your side and for our side, I would like to encourage you to call it a weekend and that we could all leave peacefully without anyone being the subject matter of arrest. I don't quarrel with people demonstrating within the framework of the law. You know, like marches and things of that nature. I don't think because of my adult life, if you will, and what I've invested of my life in law enforcement, that I could ever be a demonstrator marching up and down with a sign. But I certainly respect the position that people who do that take, as long as they don't violate the law. Now, as a police officer, when they do violate the law, you know, my duty is to see to it that it doesn't happen, or that at least it's prevented either through arrest or discussion, and encourage them to not to continue breaking the law. Might you entertain my request to disband and go home in consideration of having made your point?
You mentioned earlier that our goal was the occupation, and that we have, in fact, done that, and we should go home. Our goal is to stop the plant from being constructed, and that means that we're probably going to stay here until we are arrested. People are prepared to be arrested. That's basically where things are at.
Ronnie asked him what his timetable was. He said, you come on back here, what did he say, in 10 minutes, and let us know what your group feels. We said we needed more time than that. He finally compromised and said that he would like us to report back to him at 3 o'clock.
The people who met with him are to meet back with him at 3 p.m. with our decision. He said then he would give us a warning. We would have half an hour to leave, and if we don't, we'll be arrested. Okay, what the DMB had proposed was, I guess what the North Friendly folks had proposed as well, was that when that warning comes, we go to our affinity groups, we sit down, we stay in our affinity groups. Somebody suggested you go in your tent and zip up the thing, and if the police come, ask them if they have a warrant, because this is your home.
People that want to leave can leave, and those that don't want to leave, well, we got to be together, and then the buses are coming and we're going home, I guess. Home? Well...
And I think that really in a situation like the Seabrook protest, it's perfectly valid to say that this is a conscientious stand that people take when they say, I'm not going to sit quietly by and see something started which is going to pose a deadly threat to not so much my generation, but to future generations, to my kids and their children for generations to come. And to stop this, since legal methods seem to be failing to be effective, we can use civil disobedience. We can refuse to obey the law by way of challenging a legal horror that's being perpetrated by the power companies and supported by the civil authorities and so on.
That's right.
Oh, good afternoon again.
Hi.
I didn't really bring reinforcements. This is Captain Craig. Well, that was Captain Craig.
Well, we have good news for us. We are going to stay on the site, and we are sorry for the trouble this is going to cause you, but it would cause us more trouble and more meaningful trouble, I think, if we changed our decision.
Well, to that end, I thank you for the courtesy of returning and informing me. I would ask that you be particularly attentive to the message that I'll be broadcasting to you within minutes.
We're standing here outside of the guardhouse, outside of the Seabrook nuclear power plant. A whole string of state police, sheriffs with horses are now being driven in. to the nuclear power plant site. Are you all staying to get arrested?
Yeah. Yes, we certainly are.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Well prepared, well prepared, and together on it.
How does it feel to be waiting here, to be carted away? Well, it's a really strange feeling because I've never been in that position before, but I'm not going to walk. I'm going to make them drag me. Oh, yeah? Do you think you'll come back again and reoccupy the site? Yes. Definitely. We'll keep occupying until nuclear power plants around the world have been stopped. You've never been arrested before? Nope, this is my first time. Virgin arrest.
Down by the ocean side, down by the ocean side, down by the ocean side, down by the ocean side.
We collectively made a stand against nuclear power, and we did it non-violently, because nuclear power seems something violent. And by dealing with it non-violently, by dealing with it not by using the tools of the system, but by using our own collective tools as a group of people, I think we made more of an impression, more of a stand, and more of a mark on the history of the struggle against nuclear power.
I felt very strongly that I was doing the right thing and an important thing. And I guess that's what I thought about. If any fears came up, I just concentrated on what I was doing and how important it was, and how important it was to make a statement to the world that all these people are ready to go out and get arrested to make that statement against nuclear power.
It may be illegal in one sense, but you also have, if not a right, you have a mandate to be there. I mean, if you're going to carry your political concerns about nuclear power to their natural conclusion, then I think you've got to, at one point or another, stop talking and physically put yourself where your beliefs are.
Before I decided to occupy, I had to do a lot of reading and talking about it. It wasn't a chance I was going to take just blindly without really knowing about the issue. It had to be a little more than a gut feeling, which I always had. I needed more than that.
Really helped to be able to articulate and solidify my feelings about nuclear power and to learn the facts and the issues as well as the feelings that I had, because people, when you get really emotional about the reasons why you're against something, people kind of pass that off as some radical fervor that young people are going through. And once you can really solidify your beliefs with facts and alternatives, people listen, and they don't regard your action as frivolous as they initially did.
I think that their whole approach is very un-American. They are approaching the problem in terms of violating laws. America wasn't built that way. If you're not going to abide by the rules, and the rule book in this case happens to be the Constitution and the laws enacted by the Congress and by the state pursuant to the Constitution, that's the only way you're going to have a Republican form of government.
Nonviolent civil disobedience has a long tradition in American society. It was first used at the Boston Tea Party and later in the Civil Rights Movement. What do you personally think of civil disobedience as a means to express dissent?
We wouldn't be here if we didn't have it. Look at it. If you want to look at it historically, it started with the Boston Tea Party. Actually, it started before then. The Civil War, the Revolutionary War started right here in New Hampshire when we took over Fort William and Mary, stole the powder there from the British. Anybody, I think, that says that they don't believe in it is wrong. The 10th article in the state constitution of New Hampshire doesn't preach violence, but it tells you in no uncertain terms that if you can't live with the conditions that exist, you're almost mandated to start a revolution. So you can't very well say that how do you feel about it? There's definitely a time and place where you should be demonstrating, and on occasion, if you have to get violent, I can see it. I would question the causes where these things happen, particularly when everybody has so many recourses to courts now, and the liberal courts at that, to say nothing of a very liberal Congress, where you can really make changes, and we have made changes, and good changes. Civil rights is an example, but you can go right down the line in many other areas where big changes are made, and with no violence, just demonstrations and nonviolent demonstrations.
What do you personally think of civil disobedience?
I find it difficult to equate civil disobedience with anything but criminal misconduct. And it's a euphemism for breaking the law. It is an aid and a comfort to people who want to take to the streets. And once again, I draw a distinction between whether or not it's done for the purpose of dramatizing a message or forcing a result. That may be a distinction that I'd be interested in, but I don't see much difference. And every act of civil disobedience that you probably can tell me about, we would find in it the violation of some law. I just think that it's criminal misconduct.
Do you think it has a historic tradition in American history, particularly in New England?
Civil disobedience? Our country was probably founded on a huge civil disobedience called the American Revolution. But, you know, a revolution is a wonderful thing if it's successful. And that's the only test for a revolution, is its success.
How do you feel about people using civil disobedience as a way of expressing their opposition to the plan?
Well, I've always felt that this country stood for freedom of speech and that the people counted. But it seems so nowadays it's just the ones who have the controlling interest in big business, or, well, that leads to politics too. They're all kind of hand in hand. And I think the people have lost their voice, just like in this town. We cast a ballot, the ballot's counted, and whatever happens is supposed to carry through. It's supposed to be a legal binding vote. And they look at it as if to say, hey, we don't give a damn what you people want. We're going to do what we want. And I think the only way that people are going to get a point across is to get together and just take what action is necessary. But I think the nonviolent approach to it is, it frustrates the opposition because they don't know what to do.
We've just received a press release by Frisbee from some people who are being held in the Portsmouth Armory. It says, for immediate release, The Clamshell Alliance, May 2nd, 1977, 8:30 a.m. Apparently, Steve Hilgartner took a typewriter on the bus with him, so they're able to get releases out to people. Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The occupiers of the Seabrook nuclear power plant site remain in good spirits while awaiting booking in the Portsmouth Armory. The demonstrators have completely overloaded the state's law enforcement facilities. Many demonstrators spent the night packed in unheated buses and trucks. In general, both police and demonstrators remained on good terms. Quote, "The police have generally been friendly and deserve commendation for their professional and nonviolent conduct," said Steve Hilgartner of the Clamshell Alliance. Hilgartner added that the demonstrators sympathize with the police. "Our confrontation is not with the police, but with Public Service Company of New Hampshire," Hilgartner said.
Can you tell me when you were taken off the site?
We were taken off the site at 12 o'clock last night.
And how long was it until you were arraigned?
Until about 1:30 today.
What kinds of conditions have you been, what were you waiting? What were you doing between that time?
Just waiting. All of our time has just been spent waiting. Yesterday, today, and even more waiting until something happens.
How long were you waiting on the bus?
We weren't in a bus. We were in a military truck. There were 21 of us in the back of the truck last night and this morning. And nobody's been fed since last night at 12 o'clock when we were taken in.
When we fed ourselves. They haven't provided anything for us.
How long were you on the truck?
Till 10 o'clock this morning.
I mean, they didn't let you off the truck?
To go to the bathroom if we asked, but even then they hassled us sometimes about not letting us off.
I'm on the trucks till 11:30 this morning.
Till 11:30 this morning. That's about 15 hours or something like that.
And then you were arraigned.
Right. We had no drinkable
photographed
water, no food by the state. We were photographed and fingerprinted, and I got the shit all over my hands. My name is Raymond Laporte. I live in Seabrook, and I'd like to go.
How do you spell it? L-A-P-O-R-T-E.
Right.
L-A-P-O-R-T-E?
Yes.
T-E?
Raymond,
Yes.
did at any time anyone read you your Miranda rights?
Never. Never.
Not to me either.
No.
You never had your rights?
Never. Rights were never.
We requested it in the bus.
Never expressed to us. All they said, we were under arrest for criminal trespass, and that was it. And we've been in the truck until 11:30 this morning. And at that time, we were formally charged.
We have someone that just
I'm going to see what
they're being told that there are no phones. They are not being allowed to make phone calls. They are not being allowed off the bus unless they ask for permission to go to the washroom. There's not being exercise given. They have not been fed, and they say they've not been given drinkable water. Now, there's a serious situation in there. And they haven't been read their rights. There's a whole series of abrogations of the Constitution going on in that building.
I would assume that Governor Thompson has some justifiable pride in the criminal justice system of the state of New Hampshire.
This is right.
Would you think that he is still very proud of the criminal justice system in the state of New Hampshire if it's bogged down to this extent?
Well, I don't think it's bogged down. I think this
it ain't running very well.
This is more than a normal situation.
Okay,
I
let's
think
watch it.
you would agree yourself to that.
Well, do you think demonstrations like the ones that have taken place at Seabrook pose a threat to the law and order and stability of our society?
Oh, unquestionably, if it were to continue, if we had not responded as we did. I think you might have found a number of these protests going on all over the country, and you could have had some real problems. I think the way we handled it served the rest of the nation well. We have no option other than to enforce the law. If we fail to do that, then as a government we have failed, and you could have anarchy.
So it's a regular little city here.
Yeah, it's a city, and it's a school. It's been a tremendous educational process for everybody involved. We've learned so much about, coming together. It's pretty unusual to have 600 people from all different walks of life that didn't know anyone that can just kind of get together and figure out a way to organize themselves.
It's been pretty amazing living here, living with this many people in one room.
Really? What kind of feelings do you have about living in this kind of a situation?
Well, sometimes it would be nice to have a quiet space, and it would be nice to sleep with the lights off for one night.
Yeah.
But
there are times of frustration, but all in all, it's a potential to grow, great potential to grow for all of us.
It's an amazing bunch of people, and to be so close to this many people day after day is you really learn.
What sort of role did you play during the 13 days that people were in the armories?
Well, I guess I was the warden.
In general, how would you describe the conduct of the demonstrators?
Very good. From what I saw, and particularly the behavior in the armories, and it was good. They weren't a meek or a docile group by any sense of the word, but they were very well behaved. It was an educated group. It was, in fact, much of it was eye-opening and warming, really. It was my first experience, oddly enough, with vegetarians. You would think anybody who lived close to 60 years would have an exposure to a vegetarian of choice, a vegetarian for other than diet, a medical diet or what have you. And oddly enough, I ran a restaurant for 25 years, and I'd never come across a vegetarian in my life. I sold a lot of vegetable plates, but never a vegetarian. And we were suddenly confronted, and this appeared in rather an unusual way. My first inkling was that somebody complained, the mess people complained, the kitchen people complained that all the vegetables going and the meat was still there. And it finally turned out that a lot of people were eating nothing but vegetables. And then, of course, there were some orthodox type of vegetarians. One individual was seen going through the trash pile. And when he was interrogated, he said, "What are you doing there?" The man says, "I'm looking for a union label for the lettuce." So he evidently wouldn't eat anything but union-raised vegetables.
What's been the relationship with the National Guard who are standing around here?
They've been pretty dynamite. I mean, as individuals, they've been great. A lot of them don't like being here any more than we do. We're kind of in the same situation. We're all eating the same food, and we're all here.
People are also it raises a consciousness on a lot of people's level on what it's like to be incarcerated. And a lot of people are thinking and wanting to make the connections more with people who are, serving time in county jails and in prisons around this country. And
people who feel oppressed here, and yet realize, from talking to others, that this is pretty much a country club compared to any county jail in the state of New Hampshire, and certainly compared to the state prison, which is an absolute hole.
Do you know what's going on at the other armories, pretty much?
We catch notes from here, sort of sub-rows of notes from time to time. And our impression is that things are going real good. The things we're hearing coming out of Dover are incredible. The people are stronger than when we left. They send us happy, joyous notes telling us to hold together. They've brought us back together. The things we hear from Summerworth are even better. They've stood up to the guards, they've stood up to the National Guard and not allowed themselves to be segregated out from men to women.
How does the Guard react to your organization?
How are you dealing with the Guards? How are you getting along with them?
In Dover, they related to our organizational structure fairly well. Here, they try to ignore it. They keep trying to ask us who our leaders are. It's hard for them to believe that the number of people we have here can function without leaders. Sometimes we call the people our spokespeople, liaisons, and switch them every day. And they don't like us switch. I get the impression they don't like us switching them all the time because they keep coming back to the person who was the liaison the day before and saying, no, I want to speak to your leader over there. And the person says, no, I'm just a regular person today. He's our liaison. If you want to speak to the liaison, you can speak to them.
I take it there's been a few people leaving, due to jobs, school, whatnot. Yeah, what's the situation about the bail solidarity right now? Well, but people are holding out as long as they can, and I think there are a lot of people here who have stayed considerably longer than they ever thought they would. And it seems like there are about 350 people left here now from the 700 that were here a week ago.
When people do leave, we don't view them as leaving the group. We just view them as going outside and doing further organizing and supporting the cause. Usually there's a standing ovation to anybody when they finally have to bail out. That's a tremendous rush, and a lot of people, we try not to have people feel bad. Some people have real serious commitments, and what's been really incredible is to see people who have, thrown away their jobs, thrown away their, a lot of students that have thrown away a year's worth of schooling, and people that, they don't have a job to go to, that have created, family problems and have gone through real hardships as a result of this. It's real inspiring to see people sacrifice that much, and it gives you a feeling of knowing how powerful this movement is, and how that it's not going to get stopped. It's just going to grow, because, the state's done everything they can to beat us back. But they haven't. They just made us stronger. It's going to backfire on them. And it's just, you can throw us in jail, and you can try and silence us and take away our rights. But I just know outside people know what's going on, and people, I think, are upset.
Touching down on sacred ground, asking us to listen, simply listen. Our mother, the earth, is crying. Who will listen? Leaves that had braved the seaside saved up to let us know. Children, my tears are your pain, your fears of ruin. Tears of joy, tears of rage, who will listen? Our mother, the earth, is crying. Marching, singing praises to her word. North, south, east, and west.
What does the future mean for you?
One Seabrook after another. I don't know. The future means the future means educating myself about the most important issues that affect my life and the life of my community, and looking for ways that include the broadest number of people to make those changes. It means not passively accepting things because I feel I don't have the power to change them. It means instead not looking at my weaknesses, but looking at how much I can pull together to take a stand.
I think it should be the young people that are fighting, because it's their lives that it's going to affect. And I think the older people should join in all they can and help them. I think they should help the young people all they can.
What about some older people who say, oh, I'm 60 years old and who cares? Because I'll be gone if this ever happens. What do you think about those people?
Well, I never agree with them, because I say I'm 62 and I'm still ready to fight as long as I can. I don't think it makes any difference, the age. And I think if everyone sticks together, it counts a lot.
A little aside, if you will, to what we're talking about, but I was asked by several acquaintances of mine in the media what I was going to do after I retired. And I tried to be very serious when I responded to them by telling them that I didn't wish them to pass it around. And they became very attentive because they thought they were going to get a tidbit that no one else had heard. And I said that I was very seriously considering an offer of being the executive director of the Clamshell Alliance. And it broke them up, I'll tell you.
What are you going to do if Public Service Company keeps on building Seabrook?
What am I going to do? I'm going to stay right here. As far as I know, they're not going to destroy Seabrook, because I was here before public service came here, and I'll be here when public service is gone. They're not going to scare me, and they're not going to destroy me. Like I say, the only way they can get me is either shoot me, kill me. And I think we got laws against that. That's the only thing I can tell you. Me and my wife, Louisa, we're gonna stay right here. This is our home, and we're gonna stay right here. Matter of fact, I'm gonna be buried on my land. I'm gonna be buried right here, both of us.
What is this occupation of 2,000 people here on the Seabrook site? What does that mean? What does that mean about the power of people?
Well, we can, I feel, determine our future, that we can get together and organize and begin to change society and the world.
And there's a lot of energy here to do that?
There's a lot of energy, and I don't think there's this much energy in the multinationals. There's just money.
Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on.
If they take us off
and go to jail, when we get there, no, we won't take bail.
Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on.
If they take us away, well, what we do then? We come back again and again.
Keep your